everyone, and welcome to the Margaret Sportsbiz Podcast.
And even parents should understand that sport is going to help your child do well physically, do well mentally, no matter what profession or what role is going to happen. So good for the individual, good for the community, good for the country. So let's do it, India.
I'm your host Ananya, and today we have Shiva Keshavan, a six-time Olympian and the first Indian representative to compete in Luge at the Winter Olympic Games. Currently, he is the president of the Olympians Association of India, member of the Athletes Commission and Ethics Committee at the Indian Olympics Association, and member of the State Sports Council of Himachal Pradesh. Shiva, welcome to the podcast. We can start with your journey as an athlete. In a country where winter sports are not mainstream or prioritized, how did you manage to become the first Indian to represent the country at the Olympics in Luge?
There's a lot in that question. There's a lot to unpack, actually. It was a fruit of circumstance. I was, of course, born in the northern part of India, in the Kulu Valley, close to Manali, which is a popular tourism and adventure sports destination today. And we are blessed with, ample natural beauty, natural resources, basically an area to, explore and to try these kind of sports, winter sports, adventure sports. I used to also work, in fact, in adventure tourism, in mountaineering. I was very interested when I was a kid. I did all these courses, mountaineering courses, skiing courses, all which is available in Kulu Valley, in Manali, as it is available in few other places in India. Now, the issue when we look at India as a whole is that the mountain areas, the snowbound areas, seem far removed from the general perception of the public and of the government, because it's all centralized and located in the metros. But there's a huge area of India which is actually covered by mountains, and there's a large population which lives in this area. So it's only logical that people from these areas would take to sports that come naturally in these conditions. So, for example, when I grew up, we used to be cut off from the rest of the country during the winter because of heavy snow. And so myself and other friends of mine, peers, athletes, we used to, come up with interesting activities to spend time. We had a group of friends. We would go out to the slopes after the period of snowfall, and we would curate or prepare the slopes for sliding or for skiing down. And all this, by the way, is not professional skiing or professional sliding. They were all as we say in India, jugaad. We used to make our own equipment. We used to make our own sleds. We used to make our own skis with wood, and that's how the winter sports culture in India was born.
So, what is the situation today like?
Today, the situation is different in many places, because we do have a certain amount of infrastructure which has come up. We have a ski lift in Manali, which is beautiful. It takes you up to 3,500 meters. We have quite a lot of ski facilities in Auli, and the same in Gulmarg in Kashmir. But I must say that the development of winter sports has not followed the rate of growth that I was expecting and that was happening when I was a young athlete.
How did you then manage to fund yourself, fund your training?
Okay, so we always had a certain local competition in winter sports, and it started off as that. It was on a very, very low budget, locally training, self-taught. There are certain institutes like the Mountaineering Institute, which is present in Manali, which gives you the chance to do these courses and get up to a intermediate and advanced level. So that's how it started. When I started, I was competing in other sports, not in luge at that time. I didn't even know luge was a competitive sport. For us, it was a game. But I was competing in skiing. Since I'd won a few junior and senior level competitions in skiing at the time, I received an invitation. This is in 1994, I believe, 1994-95 winter, by a talent scout from the International Luge Federation. Now, here's where coincidence comes into play, because there was this drive from the international winter sports federations to renew or to increase the number of countries, the number of athletes that are participating in these sports, and to make it more universal. So there was this program in which they held these training camps, talent scout and training camps in India, for which I was invited, and as by virtue of being being a well-known skier at that time, and that was my first impact with luge, and the first time I saw a sled. And of course, it wasn't the sled which I would get used to in the years to come, but it was a modified version of the sled in which the blades were switched with rollerblade wheels, so that sled could be used on non-snow, non-ice surfaces. And in fact, my first experience on a luge was going down the highway from Kasoli to Chandigarh. And it's a place that doesn't even come to mind when you think about winter sports. But that was my beginning in luge, and that was where I showed potential. And then I was selected to try the actual sport on ice in Austria, and then from there on, it was just one step at a time. And you brought up the point, how did I manage to fund this? It was all a privately undertaken exercise, because there was no support at that time. Nobody even knew what the Winter Olympics were in India. The first time I went and spoke at the central ministry level about the Winter Olympics, that I have a chance to qualify for the Winter Olympics, nobody understood that the Winter Olympics is at par with the Summer Olympics. And in fact, I was even asked to prove and explain what the Winter Olympics are all about. And of course, we didn't have, and still, unfortunately, 20 years down the line, we still do not have a single winter sports federation that is recognized by the government.
And you mentioned that the state, according to you, for winter sports in India has decreased since the time you were actively competing. So in the current scenario, what do you think is the vision? How are there enough funds being dedicated, at least?
As was the case, I think, in many sports in India, there are individual cases of excellence or passion, or it's basically been individual crusades, that have taken sports to a certain level and then taken it to the masses. So sports have become mainstream after finding some kind of excellence or some kind of achievement from somebody who inspired a movement, right? And the winter sports as well, there have been a few athletes that have done well internationally, and then media attention has come in, and now a lot of people know what winter sports are and what luge is. A lot of people in India now, especially in the sports fraternity, would know what you're talking about when you say the word luge. But now what I think needs to happen is that there needs to be an understanding of the potential of the sport, and the benefit it can bring to our country and our communities. Now, the way I see it, I mean, sports for development is a very important subject for me, because coming from a rural area and an area that lives mainly on adventure activities and tourism, I can easily see how sports can be a catalyst for development. Giving people a new way of life, new professions, for young people being able to excel and prove themselves, in front of a global audience, but also, establishment of industry, winter gear, technical gear, sports medicine. That there's so much that sports can usher in.
To discuss your role on the administrative side, if you could talk about your transition from being an athlete to now on the front office side, and how has that been?
Well, I think it's extremely important that athletes get involved to become a central stakeholder in sports administration, for the simple reason that it is athletes who have competed at the higher level who know what is required, what it takes to be successful through their experiences and by seeing how some of the more advanced nations' development programs function. They can bridge the gap between our current state of development in sports, and easily go and pick techniques, equipments from other countries and implement it over here, right? Without a very long learning curve. So I think involving athletes in administration is very important because of that. You can bring that know-how, and there's a lot more that can be argued, about the passion that an athlete would bring. But purely from a knowledge point of view, I think athletes need to be engaged in administration, and at least be able to advise how the development of their particular sport should be. And I'm happy to say that there has been a change within Indian sports administration. There's more acceptance of listening to what athletes have to say now. It wasn't the same 10 years ago, for example. And a proof of that fact is that I'm part of this first athletes commission of the Indian Olympic Association. And there's myself. Is currently chaired by Anju Bobby George, and there are 5 of us athletes on the commission. And one of the first acts that we passed as the athletes commission is to mandate each and every national sports federation in India to have an athletes commission, and to have the chair of that athletes commission sit on the executive board and have a voice. Right. I think this will go a long way. Of course, we still need to create a system in which the representation is fair and people are voted in a certain way. There's more involvement from people, but these are the baby steps we're taking in that direction. The Olympians Association of India is a slightly different. It has a slightly different purview, because another huge gap that we're facing right now, and something that I'm facing in the first person, is that it can be incredibly difficult for an athlete to find an alternative career once you have retired from high level sport that you've dedicated a larger part of your life to. However, the experience of an athlete at the Olympic level is a lot more than just the competencies of the sport, because there's a whole value system that athletes represent. There's a whole value system that the Olympic movement represents. There's this whole outreach that you've had, and the experience of an athlete who's traveled the world and seen how certain things work and bring certain new ideas. Now, I think there's a lot that can be done to bridge, let's say, to bring athletes close to the corporate life. I myself, for example, do a lot of public speaking, do a lot of talks with corporates who want to know some of the qualities that make a successful athlete and how those can be translated in the work sphere. And now, what kind of a corporate job can I get, which is at par with the level of representation that I've had in sports.
And coming back to kind of your vision for winter sports, what's the big picture that you'd like to paint for India? Where do you see the country heading?
Well, I think the potential is huge. I'll give you a practical example. Some time back, there was an international company that wanted to make a ski resort in India. Okay, there was a project called the Himalayan Ski Village, and of course, it didn't materialize. But the pledge that this company had made was to invest $500 million in India over a period of time to develop world-class winter sports and mixed-use facilities. So I think just that itself shows that if this level of investment can come in to a rural area, how much it can transform the entire ecosystem over there. And of course, all these things have to be big projects. Always have to be seen very carefully, in terms of environmental impact and impact on the local communities, etc. But there is a way to use create a win-win situation for the environment, for the people, for the economy. I have very ambitious ideals in this, because I believe that India can be at the forefront, of the winter sports movement. Because we do have a growing economy. We do have the potential for investment. The entire world would like to come and experience the Himalayas. Event-based tourism is the way to go for these places, and to really reap the benefits of tourism, which is right now, we are using only a fraction of what we can do in tourism in India. There's so many cities in Europe that have more annual visitors than the entire country of India. So if we find ways in which people can come and find new ways that people can come and engage and spend money in our country, and not just money, go to the rural areas, understand our nature, our ecology, our culture. If we have these kind of ambitious plans, we can do very, very well. China is doing it right now. China is actually hosting the Winter Olympic Games. They're building all the infrastructure from scratch. They had nothing. They have a lot less, let's say, natural resources for winter sports than we have. Unfortunately or fortunately, a key driver for many of these things is economic gain, right? So you can look at it through that lens, and see, okay, how can we make a system that makes money for the owners, makes money for the locals, and also puts India in the forefront.
I'm going to ask one last question on that note of optimism. Is that if you have, any words of wisdom for those looking to fill into your shoes and kind of luge their way through winter sports in India?
Ultimately, I think everybody should find their own passion. And passion is something that, that helps you overcome adversity. If you're doing something because you feel that you want to be there, it makes it worthwhile to struggle over the eventual obstacles, that you will face. These things are every athlete will face obstacles during his or her career. And if you're choosing a sport for the right reasons, then you have that much stronger of an answer to these situations. So my advice would be to young athletes to find their passion, and so choose the sport for the right reasons, and of course also choose the sport that you are physically and mentally compatible with. But I think that we are going to see more and more opportunities for winter sports coming up, and I hope that the young people of today that have so much access to information because of the globalized world we're living in. Sometimes there are many not just intangible issues, but serious issues like money and finding a coach and things like that. So I would suggest to get in touch with other athletes who I'm sure will always want to give you good advice and try to help you to reach your goal. Don't let the difficulties scare you. We are now part of a support system that intends to help young athletes.
Shiva, it was a pleasure and an honor having you on this podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on winter sports in India. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed listening to this as much as I did. Please don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and podcasts for more such content on the business of sports in India.